Welcome to the Bullvine Podcast, where we bring you the stories behind dairy's most influential figures. Today, we're celebrating a true pioneer who transformed how we evaluate and select dairy cattle. 80 years ago today, a future visionary was born who would help Canadian genetics capture 25% of global Holstein semen sales, all while starting from a modest farm with just 22 cows. Murray Hunt's creation of the dollar difference formula fundamentally shifted breeding decisions from show ring appearance to economic efficiency. In this episode, we'll explore how one man's scientific approach and practical farm wisdom revolutionized dairy breeding worldwide. From his early days at Huntsdale Farm to his groundbreaking work at Holstein Canada, this is the Murray Hunt story, a birthday tribute to a living legend whose influence touches every modern dairy operation. Let's dive in.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're cracking open the story behind some really monumental shifts in Canadian dairy genetics. And it's all in honor of Murray Hunt's 80th birthday, which is today, April 9th, 2025. So happy birthday to him.
Yeah, quite a milestone. And what's really cool is our source material today.
Right. It comes straight from his son. So we're getting this this really unique personal perspective on his father's work.
It makes it much more than just dates and facts, doesn't it? It's like getting the inside track on how things really unfolded.
Totally. Because Murray Hunt, well, he essentially injected a huge dose of science right into how dairy farmers pick their cows, how they develop their herds.
It's almost strange to think about a time before data was king, but he was like a major player in making that switch happen.
And we've learned there were these two almost seismic events he was right in the middle of.
Yes, the dollar difference formula.
That's one. And the other was a complete top-to-bottom redesign of the classification systems.
His son called them watershed moments, and I think that's spot on. Not just little tweaks. These were like fundamental changes.
Like going from, I don't know, a mapping compass to GPS overnight.
Exactly. Game changers. But, it wasn't just about the formulas and the systems, was it?
No, not at all. He was also key in building bridges, connecting the research folks, the academics, with the farmers out in the barn, all across Canada.
And that kind of collaboration, that link between the lab and the field, that's got a legacy that just keeps going. It's where the real progress happens.
You need that translation, right? Brilliant ideas are one thing, but making them work practically, that's another skill entirely.
And that seems to have been one of his real strengths.
For sure. So for everyone listening in, maybe you're a dairy veteran who remembers these changes happening, or maybe you're newer to the industry and curious how we got here understanding these shifts is, well, it's pretty crucial.
It definitely helps make sense of today's industry and maybe even gives us clues about what's coming next.
Okay, so let's hit rewind. Back to the very beginning. Huntsdale Farm.
Right. And the starting point is, well, quite something. April 1st, 1960, Murray's grandparents, Sterling and Irene, take over.
And it wasn't exactly a thriving dairy operation.
Not at all. A struggling 25-acre market garden, actually, with just, 2 or 3 Ayrshire cows?
Yeah, focused mainly on cream production, shipping only about 450 pounds of milk a day. And the facilities were pretty dated.
Paints a picture, doesn't it? A completely different era of farming.
And their drive initially wasn't about building some massive herd. It was simpler.
Putting their kids through school.
Exactly. His son mentioned Grandpa Sterling didn't have a ton of prospects at the local co-op feed mill, so taking on this farm was a big leap of faith.
It kind of shows how innovation sometimes starts from necessity, not grand ambition. Just wanting a better future.
And boy, did they transform things quickly in those early 60s.
Yeah, the timeline is impressive. Barn renovation in 61, new equipment, better fertilization. They weren't messing around.
Sounds like they went all in on modernizing.
And the family skills seemed to complement each other. Sterling knew his crops and nutrition. Irene handled milking, gardening, and was apparently the community connector.
It really highlights how farming, even then, was never just one thing. It took a team effort.
Definitely. And by 1965, just 5 years later, huge change.
30 cows, cranking out 2,000 pounds of milk daily, plus selling breeding stock to Canada and the U.S. That's serious progress.
And 65 was also key because the Ontario Milk Marketing Board started up.
Yeah.
That allowed them to buy quota, which would have, stabilized things financially.
And get this, the payoff. By 1967, they owned the farm free and clear.
Incredible. Just through productivity and sheer efficiency. Speaks volumes about their management.
Sets the stage nicely for where young Murray comes in.
Because he wasn't just doing chores. Even back in 1960, as a kid, he was already involved in the serious stuff. Animal recording, the breeding programs.
Right, laying the groundwork for his whole career, basically.
And he was quick to adopt new things. Record of performance, the ROP system in 1962, artificial insemination the same year, type classification in 63. These were big deals back then.
You can just picture him, this young guy, meticulously tracking everything in the barn, notebook in hand.
Yeah, planting the seeds for a data-driven approach, even if he didn't fully realize it then.
And he was busy outside the barn, too. All sorts of 4-H dairy, potatoes, tractors, public speaking, you name it.
A well-rounded kid.
Plus sports and clubs at school. But then there was that shoulder injury.
The farm accident in 61. A recurring dislocation sounds painful and probably limiting for farm work.
Definitely. And that injury turned out to be, well, a bit of a turning point.
His mother, Irene, suggested college because of the shoulder, right?
Yeah. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? If that hadn't happened, would things have gone differently? One of those sliding doors moments.
It really shows how setbacks can sometimes redirect you onto an equally impactful path, maybe even more so.
So off he went. September 65, University of Guelph, Ontario Agricultural College, thinking veterinary medicine at first.
But that shifted. By 67, he was into a Bachelor of Science in Ag, then onto a Master's.
Putting the, quote, Huntsdale dream on hold, at least for a while.
And specializing in animal science, genetics, and importantly, computer applications. That mix was key.
Definitely. And university wasn't just about academics. August 67, he met Karen.
Ah, yes. They married in 69. And he considers that his most significant legacy.
It's great, isn't it? He said, K&M's legacy will be the great things that our families achieve. Puts all the career stuff in perspective.
It absolutely does. A reminder that life's bigger than just work, even for someone who changed an industry.
And he had mentors too, right? People who helped guide him early on.
Yes, the Sagers, Mo Freeman, Roger Diamond, Doug Wingrove, and later names like George Clemens, Bob Lang, Harley Nicholson.
Sounds like he soaked up knowledge wherever he could find it.
Which is often a hallmark of people who achieve great things, that constant learning.
Okay, fast forward a bit. 1970, the master's thesis. This is where things really start to have industry-wide whipples.
His son describes it as basically the foundation for Canadian breeding strategies for decades.
Yeah.
That's a huge statement.
No kidding. And he used computer simulation, which was seriously cutting-edge stuff back then, to make some pretty, well, radical recommendations.
Like what?
Like sampling 4 times as many young sires as they were doing, and putting a much bigger emphasis on production traits.
So moving away from just the visual, the confirmation towards what the animals could actually do makes sense economically.
Totally. And then there was the all-young bull stud concept.
I'll explain that one.
Okay, so the idea was to collect and store semen from a whole bunch of young, unproven bulls, then wait and see which ones turned out to be genetically elite based on their daughter's performance.
Ah, I see. So you could then use that stored semen from the proven top guys for future generations.
Exactly. And his son points out how eerily similar that is to how genomic selection works today. The guy was thinking decades ahead.
Way ahead of the curve. And you can understand his pride that Canadian AI organizations actually ran with that plan.
Yeah, achieving 25% of global Holstein semen sales with less than 2% of the world's cows. That's punching way above your weight. Testament to the strategy.
Absolutely. And sort of spinning out of that master's work came something else huge.
The dollar difference formula?
Right. This formula was brilliant in its simplicity, really. Calculate the value, the revenue a bull's daughters are likely to generate, then subtract the costs associated with that production.
Giving you a bottom line dollar figure for choosing one bull over another. It was basically a total merit index, but, decades before TMIs became standard.
The TMI before TMI. Love that. It shifted the focus squarely onto profitability.
And the OMAFRA folks, the government people, they got it. They supported it strongly.
But not everyone was on board initially.
No, the breed associations, well, they were still very much focused on confirmation, how the cows looked, the type. There was definitely some resistance there. That
classic tension between tradition and data-driven change happens everywhere.
So after his master's, his first job was with OMAFRA's Dairy Herd Improvement Program, the DHI, managed a big team.
And he mentioned being proud of getting DHI records officially accepted by Holstein Canada.
Yeah, another step towards integrating data, making it central to decision-making. breaking down silos.
That's crucial. You need reliable, standardized data for any meaningful genetic evaluation.
Then, June 73, he moves over to Holstein Canada itself, and this is where he really encounters the prevailing mindset.
Which was still very phenotype-driven, based on looks.
Almost entirely, according to his son. They were largely ignoring the genetic evaluation methods that were emerging, including the milk and fat bull proofs coming from Ag Canada.
Wow, so the tools were there, but the main breed organization wasn't really using them.
Pretty much. Purebred breeders were still putting more faith in show ring results than in, scientific proofs. Must have been frustrating for him.
You can imagine. Bringing science to the table when the culture is still rooted in visual appraisal, that's a tough sell.
But he was determined. He started collaborating with researchers, particularly E.B. Burnside at Gulf, who were pioneers in BLUP methods.
Best linear unbiased prediction. That was the breakthrough technology, really.
Explain BLUP simply.
Okay, well, essentially, BLUP allowed for much fairer genetic comparisons between animals. It could mathematically separate the effects of the environment, like feed, management, different farms, from the animal's actual inherent genetic merit. Much more accurate.
Got it. So it levels the playing field for genetic evaluation.
Precisely. And Murray's biggest contribution at Holstein Canada, arguably, was leading the charge to completely overhaul their type classification system using these BLUP methods.
Right. Culminating in the BLUP animal model in the early 80s. That wasn't just a tweak. It was a revolution in how they evaluated type.
Absolutely fundamental. Moving beyond just subjective scores based on appearance to incorporating objective genetic predictions.
And the results. The program took off.
8-fold growth between 73 and 90. And it got adopted internationally. That speaks volumes about its success and value.
Okay, let's circle back specifically to those two big innovations. The dollar difference formula and the type classification overhaul.
That dollar difference formula, even though it came from his masters, its impact was felt across North America. It really changed the conversation around bull selection.
Yeah, it challenged that generations-old focus on show ring aesthetics. The traits that win ribbons versus the traits that actually pay the bills.
His formula quantified that. It put a dollar value on the revenue minus cost equation for a sire's daughters.
The TMI before TMI. It made the economic case crystal clear.
And while government folks saw the practical value, you still had that pushback from the breed associations clinging to high type. That tension was real.
And the type classification rewrite, that was equally transformative. He didn't just slap BLUP onto the old system. He led a total rewrite using his statistical training.
Moving it from purely phenotype, what you see, to incorporating genetic potential in a statistically robust way. That was the key.
And a big part of making it work was ensuring the classifiers were all on the same page, right? Uniform standards.
Absolutely critical. You need consistency in scoring for the genetic evaluations, the bull proofs, to be accurate and reliable.
So he had to get the Holstein board behind it, get the field staff out there promoting it, explaining the value. It was a change management challenge as much as a technical one.
Which is often the case. Great ideas need great implementation and communication strategies to succeed.
And again, that 8-fold growth shows they pulled it off. The industry eventually saw the benefits.
It marked a really significant shift in thinking, accepting that science and data could lead to better breeding decisions than just the eye test alone.
So his career really spans this fundamental change in breeding philosophy for Holsteins.
From prioritizing show ring looks
to focusing much more on farm profitability, efficiency, sustainability, things that matter day to day.
A maturing of the industry, really. Recognizing that long-term success isn't just about ribbons.
You saw that initial reluctance in the early 70s, though. Holstein Canada focused on phenotype, breed associations wary of the dollar difference guide, breeders ignoring Ag Canada proofs.
Inertia is powerful. Tradition, prestige tied to the show ring. It takes time and strong evidence to shift that kind of deeply ingrained focus.
And he noted that even the BLUP production indexes took longer to catch on with individual breeders compared to the AI organizations.
That makes sense. AI units are purely focused on delivering genetic progress efficiently. They saw the power of BLUP immediately. Breeders might have had other factors influencing their decisions.
But the tide did turn. Better data, more accurate evaluations, plus a new generation coming back to the farms in the 70s may be more open to the science.
That generational shift is often a catalyst for adopting new technologies and approaches.
And you absolutely cannot talk about this transformation without talking about artificial insemination.
AI was the engine driving a lot of this genetic game.
As Murray himself said, 90% of genetic gain in a population comes from the sires used. That just nails it.
It highlights the immense leverage AI provides. Use the best bulls widely, and you accelerate progress dramatically.
And looking back at his master's recommendations, sample more young bulls, focus on production, and seeing Canada capture 25% of the global semen market.
It's powerful validation. It shows those early science-based strategies really worked, putting Canada on the map for dairy genetics.
Okay, let's shift focus a bit from the what to the how, his leadership style. His son stresses he wasn't a limelight seeker, but very collaborative.
Which is often the most effective kind of leadership, isn't it? Building consensus, working together, even without being the loudest voice, especially in a diverse industry.
And he managed to get competitors, the AI organizations, to cooperate on research and national initiatives through the Canadian Association of Animal Breeders. That takes skill.
But it shows he could help people see the bigger picture, that some things benefit the whole industry, even if you're competing day to day.
His mentorship philosophy is interesting too, very forward-looking.
Yeah, he believed a mentor's job isn't just to get mentees to repeat the past, especially if the past no longer applies. It's about preparing them for the future.
That quote is great. A mentor is not an honest mentor if all they do is encourage mentees to repeat the past that no longer applies. Powerful stuff. Requires constant adaptation.
Absolutely. Visioning the future, he noted, can make people uncomfortable. But it's necessary.
And he had a process for tackling big industry problems.
Methodical, it sounds like. Define the issue clearly.
Get all the willing players involved in an independent task force, bring in visionaries.
Circulate recommendations, get feedback, then bring everyone together for buy-in.
It's a solid blueprint for driving change in a complex system. Inclusive and structured.
And he put it into practice, leading the move to privatize milk recording and genetic evaluations when government support shifted.
That took foresight and initiative, ensuring those vital services continued. Didn't just wait for things to fall apart.
Proactive leadership. And helping establish the Genetic Evaluation Board, supporting the Center for Genetic Improvement of Livestock. More building blocks for the future.
Absolutely. Building the infrastructure needed for ongoing progress.
So now we look ahead. It's his 80th birthday today, but he's clearly still thinking about the future of dairy.
And his son shares that ultimately his greatest pride, his main legacy, is his family.
That quote again. K&M's legacy will be the great things that our families achieve. Really grounding.
Puts everything in perspective. But he still has strong views on the industry's direction. He's got some concerns.
Like the overuse of TMIs.
Exactly. Worries that focusing too heavily on those total merit indexes, TPI, LPI, net merit, pro-way, might come at the expense of other crucial traits.
Like health, mobility, fertility. The functional traits that keep cows healthy and productive long-term.
Yeah, he thinks that narrow focus might hinder developing the kind of cows we'll actually need in, say, 2050, more resilient animals.
It's a valid concern. Optimizing for one index can sometimes lead to unintended consequences in other areas.
Right.
We need a balanced approach.
I mean, he's a big advocate for breeding programs that actively incorporate adaptability and disease resistance. His son asked, and his answer was emphatic. For sure, yes. Cannot happen soon enough.
That makes perfect sense. With climate change, evolving disease pressures, cows that can cope, that are naturally more robust, are going to be increasingly valuable.
He also throws out a really interesting, maybe even provocative idea about genetic diversity.
Oh, what's his take?
He suggests maybe we're too focused on just inbreeding common ancestors. He thinks we need more information on the specific genetic combinations that actually cause problems.
So less about how related parents are, and more about identifying specific problematic gene interactions in the offspring.
Kind of. His quote was, "We need more information on the genetic makeups that cause problems, and not just on common ancestry. The commonality of future offspring, not about common ancestors." It's a different way to frame the diversity issue.
That's fascinating. It implies a need for deeper genomic understanding beyond just pedigree tracking. Very forward thinking.
He also looks at the industry structure, acknowledges the reality of consolidation, especially in the U.S., with huge herds.
Yes, 75% U.S. milk coming from herds of 1,000+ cows. That's a staggering statistic.
And he believes smaller breeders, maybe those under 100 cows, need to find a novel, unique specialty to thrive in that environment.
Niche markets, specialized genetics, finding a way to differentiate beyond just scale. Makes sense.
And he's pretty blunt about the future drivers. Future milk production, like it or not, depends on technology. Scale is a must. Automation. Time waits for no one.
A stark but likely realistic assessment. Efficiency and tech adoption are key.
Finally, he calls for a more integrated approach to solving future problems, less working in silos.
Criticizing too much individual silo work approach and pushing for a wide-scoped approach, bringing together different disciplines.
Yeah, recognizing that the challenges are complex and need expertise from genetics, nutrition, health, engineering, economics, all working together.
A holistic view, which seems fitting given his career.
So wrapping up this deep dive on Murray Hunt at 80, his legacy is just this incredible mix, isn't it? Scientific rigor, practical application, visionary leadership.
Absolutely. The dollar difference formula, modernizing type classification, these weren't just academic exercises. They fundamentally changed how farmers made decisions and built the success of Canadian Holstein genetics globally.
And achieved through collaboration, not just top-down directives, getting people to work together.
Plus that constant challenge to think ahead, to adapt, not just repeating the past, like his view on mentorship.
A mentor is not an honest mentor if all they do is encourage mentees to repeat the past that no longer applies. Worth repeating.
Definitely. And balancing all that professional drive with a clear focus on his family as his ultimate priority.
A really well-rounded impact. So as we reflect on Murray Hunt's forward look, his focus on adaptability, disease resistance, a holistic view, it leaves us with a question for you, our listeners.
How are you thinking about these broader factors? Beyond the immediate production numbers, how are you building resilience and sustainability into your own operations for the dairy landscape of tomorrow?
Definitely something to chew on. Happy 80th birthday, Murray Hunt. And thanks everyone for joining us on this deep dive.
As we conclude our tribute to Murray Hunt on his 80th birthday, we're reminded that true innovation often comes from those who can bridge scientific precision with practical farming knowledge. Murray's legacy lives on not just in the evaluation systems that determine breeding decisions worldwide, but in the mentorship he provided to countless industry professionals. His forward-thinking approach, balancing production goals with animal health and functionality, offers valuable guidance as we face dairy's future challenges. Thank you for joining us today on the Bullvine Podcast. If you're working with dairy genetics, remember Murray's wisdom that a mentor is not an honest mentor if all they do is encourage mentees to repeat the past that no longer applies. Until next time, keep breeding for better tomorrows.